This is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sebastian Merrill on this week's Takedown Thursdays, an episode presented by the Weigh-In. We're going to talk to you about the 5-for-5 NCAA wrestling rule. And just to kind of tell you what that is eliminating the red shirt and coming out with a fifth year of eligibility. So we're going to talk about that because that is interesting. So nonetheless, that is this week's Takedown Thursday, an episode presented by the Weigh-In. So we jump right into this one. First and foremost, to everybody, this 5-for-5, I think that's what they're calling it, the 5-for-5 rule. The 5-for-5 rule is going to be exponential, because the 5-for-5 rule means that it says here's what it is. The NCAA proposed a 5-for-5 or 5-in-5 rule is an age-based eligibility model that would grant a Division I athlete 5 full seasons of competition within a 5-year window. The 5-year clock starts the academic year immediately after an athlete turns 19 or graduates from high school, whichever happens first. So this is the proposal, which I really do like it, because, you know, if many of you don't understand what a red shirt is, let me get you what a red shirt is. An NCAA red shirt delay or extends a student athlete's eligibility. You generally have 5 calendar years to play 4 seasons of competition. During a red shirt year, you can practice with the team, receive financial aid, and attend classes, but you cannot compete in official games against outside competition. So what it essentially is telling you is that, like, you can't compete in an official capacity. So here's the standard for wrestling standards. The 5-day freshman rule. True freshmen in Division I wrestling can compete attached to their school for up to 5 dates of competition and still retain their red shirt. Postseason exception. A freshman cannot use one of those 5 dates on a conference or national tournament. Doing so immediately burns the red shirt. What counts as a date? A 2-day tournament counts as a single date. Multiple dual meets hosted on the same day also count as just one date. First semester restrictions. True freshmen is not allowed to compete. It's not a true freshman are not allowed to compete unattached during the first semester. If a freshman enters an open tournament in November or December, they must wear the school uniform, compete attached, which automatically counts as one of their 5 allowed dates. So the unattached status. After the first semester, redshirting wrestlers can compete unattached in open tournaments. And this is why I kind of like this. I like the proposal of the 5-for-5, because in the 5-for-5 rule, it stems off of getting a 5th year of eligibility. And why I like that. Why I like. Yeah. Why I like that is because in that 5th year, and when you're a redshirt currently and you have to compete unattached, you cannot be, you know, let me look this up, because this was a. Right. So when you're unattached, when you wrestle unattached, the head coach cannot coach you at a tournament. And I kind of feel if you give a 5th year of eligibility, it allows a coach to be able to coach his guys at an open tournament. But what it's going to get rid of, and this is the truth, the wrestling club model of colleges is very lucrative. So when you're a red shirt, typically you see those guys practice with the wrestling club, the regional training center, the RTC for some of them, the RTC, I should say. Now, given that you're going to add this fifth year, they still can you probably will still see a lot of that, but it allows them for a head coach to go out there now and say, if a guy competes at a tournament, now you don't got to worry about only 5 events. What you can worry about is now they just have to worry about getting better. You don't have to worry about, who's going to coach what. And I don't think this was an issue, but when you have, like, let's say a guy like Kill Sanderson at the helm or David Taylor, great coaches, legendary coaches, I should say, in terms of Kill Sanderson and David Taylor's on at the start of doing some good stuff. You would want to be able to coach your guy or gal. You want to be able to coach your wrestler through the tournament. And if you're a red shirt and you're unattached, you currently, would not be able to be coached by the head coach. It means that, and you would want, in some cases, you want those guys in the corner. But I think it's just better for wrestling. Are we going to see probably a 5-time champion or 2? Yeah. Now, I'm going to make a very bold opinion here. I think COVID caused this. I know a lot of you might not agree, but they saw how many guys came off of COVID and used their 5th year and really were able to adjust. The level of competition is getting so good now. It's like you got high schoolers winning open tournaments, wrestling open tournaments and doing well. At some cases, wrestling well. You had Jax come fresh out of high school and win a national title. Like, wow. I get what you're going to say. Ben Davino got his avenged his loss. And we talked about that a lot of times avenging a loss it's a good thing, being that I'm an Okie State fan and that, I would have wanted Okie State to continue their way through, but it's a good thing. I love to see people avenge their losses, no matter who it's against, even if it's a Nittany Lion that loses to somebody and then they finally avenge it. I like it. So I really think this is going to be interesting. Now, I think Kale Sanderson, is going to have quite a few. I think Kale could get some 5-timers. I think Kale can, because he's already done it. So it's kind of like, you're going to have the new guys coming in, if they do adopt this rule, this 5 for 5, I think it's a good thing. I really do. I really do like the fact that I do like it. I know through wrestling it's going to be give or take, because they're going to say, okay, well, if a guy gets beat out for a spot in his first year, now he only going to start for, say, 4 seasons, and if he had a red shirt, but that's the point. At some point, you got to put yourself where you can start. We all know that what I like to call, I last year I called it the draft. This year it's really the free agency of wrestling, the free agency of college wrestling, the transfer portal. I think with the way the transfer portal is, having them have 5 years of eligibility is not a bad idea, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if an NCAA wrestler doesn't start their first year, they're going to be in the transfer portal. Somebody somewhere will put them in a starting spot. But at the same time, if you're not starting, it's because you have not earned that starting spot. If you guys understand what I'm saying, you got to earn that spot. So I really don't see a sheerful difference in what's going on. I know a lot of people may think that that's, I don't really see a difference in what's going to go on here, because I like the idea of having a 5 for 5. So that's a really good thing. So I'll run you what's going around college wrestling. Jack Smith off to Ohio State, just so you know. Let me see. Jenna Burkhart is going to join the Iowa staff. See if there's anything new for you. We have Lorenzo Norman commits to Oklahoma State. Oh, this is another thing. I'm glad I see it now in my notes. There can't be enough said about how well Jaden James wrestled. You know, there just isn't enough said. You know, there just isn't enough said at World Team Trials how well Jaden James wrestled. That is something I want to talk about. And you know what? I think we have some credit to do this, and we're gonna get some credit here. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, KD Training Center knows what they're doing over there. They know what they're doing over there. They know exactly what they're doing over there. Like let's take a look at their let's take a look at the Instagram, break it down. They got PJ Duke, who was a 70 kilogram U20 world champ. You had U17 world champ in 71 kilogram Jaden James. They had Rocco Walsh, an All American. I just kind of say here that they got a good thing going. They got a good thing going. That's just what I'm saying here. That they got a good thing going. They got a good thing going over there at with KD. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing, and that's nothing north. He knows what he's doing. You know, and it's. I know you don't see me enough times give credit to some of these coaches, but I'm gonna give some credit here to KD because he's doing some great things. He's doing some great things. He's doing some great things, and they got some good things rolling over there. And I think it's going to start a wave of something that is really good. And you have to always, if you ask me, you have to always do what's really good, and that's very well. Give credit to some of these trendsetters, because you ask me, they're trendsetters. They're trendsetters. They're trendsetters, if you ask me. I say that because you're going to see a lot of guys want to start off and try to say that they can run senior level worlds or get on these very well have a senior level world spot, because we see this with we saw it with Jax, we're seeing it with Bassett, we saw it with PJ Duke and Marcus Blaze. Like, there are names of guys that are just the elite of wrestling right now, the talent of college wrestling right now. It's just so, I'm telling you, it is. The elite is so well. Like, let's take a look at, like, we talked about this last Bishop McCord. We talked about Bishop McCord as as a as a really good school, and like, you look at their their best guys. We're just going to talk about this: Bassett, Forrest, Herring, McMullen, Margot. This is what I'm talking about. Like, I think wrestling right now is in a very good place to where the talent is so good that I think the up and coming talent would benefit from that 5-for-5 rule. Like, I believe they would all benefit from having that 5th year eligibility, because you know what? You go and get that in place for next season. I don't bet that you have, you know, Bassett a couple time national. I don't doubt that Bo Bassett can do something like that, become a 5-time. I don't doubt Jax Forrest can do it. I don't doubt that anybody, I don't doubt that, Blaze could turn around. What I'm saying here is that I don't doubt that the current talent coming up and how good wrestling is, I don't doubt that you can have a 5-for-5 champ, but it's a lot more difficult than it would be if it was done in, I would say, other years versus now. Now, I'm not talking about when you had like those Jordan Burrow, Brett Metcalf years, because those look like those were some tough years. And many may not agree with me, but those look like some tough years. There have been some tough NCAA tournaments that have come around really good. But you look at, I'm talking about like currently, you've got returning NCAA champs being downed in like second and third rounds, where at this point, you're not seeing the same guy run all the way up back to the final. I get you may say, well, you kind of do. Yeah, but you really don't. You really don't. When you look up the lineup, you don't look it up, and it's not a Kill Sanderson seed all night. It really isn't. And I'm not saying this because, obviously you always, hint at me for disliking Penn State. I'm saying this because like wrestling is at a very good place where it is wicked. Like it is good. Like you'll have guys that, I'm saying schools I have not heard of, because obviously I watch enough wrestling. I have not heard of some school, and you'll see that guy turn around and like down somebody. Like everybody remembers the Kyle Cornell story. Look, Kyle Cornell story. It was like, that's what it is right now, that you're getting a lot of wrestlers that are just really good, and you're seeing the scrappiness, and it's a really great thing. In terms of wrestling, it's a really great thing. And I just think that that's really good. I think it's fairly hard to not see that as a good thing. And I can't wait for this because I think it's great. Whether what I believe, whether we should stick with that 5-for-5 rule, that's irrelevant. But if you're asking me, 5-for-5. That's what I think. 5-for-5. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the talent is so good right now that they've outgrown the red shirt. Like, look at wrestling right now. Jax just came straight out of high school and won an NCAA title. Like, no red shirt. That's what I'm telling you. And I'm not saying that this is unorthodox, but I'm telling you, look at how many true freshmen. I'm not just saying from Okie State, just in general. Look how well the true freshmen are wrestling now. The talent has outgrown the red shirt. I by far believe the talent has outgrown the red shirt because there was a lot of good wrestlers. Even if, amidst what's going on, I think, PJ Duke, I thought was very well, wrestled very well. I thought Blaze wrestled very well, up at Penn State. That's what I'm talking about. That like the level of freshmen. I'm pretty sure when you talk about, these groups, a lot of them nowadays are becoming All-Americans. And I believe by far that they have outgrown the red shirt. I believe in this fifth year, this fifth year, this fifth year idea. I really do. I believe in it. I believe in this idea, the proposal. I should say that's what it's called. I believe in the proposal. I really do. So that's what this episode is kind of about, because all the wrestling podcasts are doing this. So, it's kind of just everybody, all the viewers are asking about it. But yeah, I do think that this is a good thing. I do. I really do believe that, the talent is starting to outgrow the red shirt. I'm thinking now, don't get me wrong, you got guys that have been there for 3-4 years, but these guys like Jax and guys like, the question this is what I'm kind of getting at. It's going to be interesting for a guy for the current situation of wrestlers that have already used a red shirt. So if Kid redshirted this year, redshirt freshman, redshirts this year, it's going to be interesting to see if that kid that redshirts this year. What will happen with those guys? Because if you put this proposal in place where everybody gets a fifth year and somebody's already used a red shirt, do they not get that fifth season? So I'm sure they're going to clarify if they do go through with the proposal. But it's one of those things where it's like that would be fairly interesting if you've already used a red shirt where you already have an extra year, and now they're telling you that everybody's going to gain a year of eligibility, which is more than likely what's going to happen. If you're coming in, you'll have 5 years. If you're already in, they'll probably tell you have everybody's going to receive an extra year of eligibility just to say, hey, you're getting your fifth. And for some guys, it'll end up being a six if they might have already. So now this isn't a fact. This is opinionated, speculatory. That if they've already used their red shirt, they may end up with that sixth year because they're supposed to get a full year, or however they may do it out. My point here being that it's going to get interesting, and I do think that it's a good thing. Now, is that bad for for current guys that are on there, the guys that don't really? It's bad for the guys that don't perform. And I'm going to tell you why, because now you recruit a guy, and you used to recruit a guy and they say, oh, we're going to redshirt. Now you're going to recruit a guy, and if he wins the starting spot, whoever was there is going to end up, like I'm sure, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's instances where you've had returning All-Americans lose a spot to somebody, Now you have it because you got guys transferring. Actually, I do know one. Actually, scratch that. I do know one. Okie State, Richie Figueroa, Richie Figs, Richie Figs at Okie State is a prime example of returning. Well, not really returning, but All-American that did not have a spot. You had Spratley. Going. You had Jax. It's kind of like, hey. It's one of those interesting things where it's like, hey, like, it's fairly interesting if you ask me. Like, I do believe it is. If you ask me, I think it's fairly interesting. I really do, because it's no matter how you draw it out, it's gonna get good. It really is, and I say that because you can look at what goes on, and the fact that you have, and it happens, returning All-Americans don't, and you know what? Many of you will probably try to bring up Mosama and Dean and say, well, that was another situation, didn't have a spot. No. That's totally different. He was 3-time Division III national champ, came up D1. He was not a Division I All-American prior, and he didn't have a spot on the team at Iowa. I'm talking guys that are still on the team, but you could also say guys that weren't. That's not a returning Division I All-American. What I mean the returning Division I. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I already see you're going to drop in the questions. Oh, Mosama and Dean, Mosama and Dean is another one, and no, that's not another one, at all. That is not really another one. If you ask me, that's not really another one because he kind of did not finish the season with Iowa or become an All-American at the Division I level. But if some of you believe that's countable, yeah, Mosam Mendine is another situation where you're returning. He was a Division III, a returning Division III national champ. Transferring Division I, did not have a spot. I mean, he had a spot, but difference is, but that's a total different situation. But you talk about Richie Figs, did not have a spot. It just a tough situation when you talk about stuff like that. That it's, did not have a spot. You talk about that, and that's the stuff I'm talking about. The up and coming talent is so good that you've got former national champs, returning All-Americans, not even getting spots. And to that denotion, Spratley, I, it's a debate. 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 It, it's a debate because Joyce Bradley is, So let's talk about what they had Richie Figs on that year. I'm sure that's not the only one, but that's just what we're bringing up. Let's talk about this Richie Fig situation for a minute. Let's talk about this Richie Fig. Let me pull it up for you. Richie Figs was at 133. He was listed 133. Well, I don't know what to tell you because Jax was the national champ. You kind of say, well, when your replacement wins a national title, but it listed Richie Figs as a redshirt senior. So it's questionable if he had another. No, I think this was his another. I believe this was his another year because he redshirted in 2022. That's what it says. So probably not. I think Richie Figs was all out in what was a true senior year. I think that's a tough situation. Tough if you're Richie Figs. Tough. But that's what I'm talking about. The talent coming up is so much more better when you have stuff like that. So I think tough stuff. So it's tough stuff. So luckily, my source was able to get back to me. No, Richie Fix does not have another year, so that settles that. But that's the kind of things we're talking about that you're going to see a lot more because you have fifth year. So you're going to see a guy say, "Well, I don't want to sit the year out." They're going to be a lot more scrappier, and what I mean by that is they're gonna want to say, "Hey, I want the spot. I want to try to win a national title for 5 straight years." You know what I mean? But it just is. It's just I don't know. I find that this rule benefits David Taylor and Cale Sanderson the most because I feel like David Taylor's building really good squads that he's building All-Americans over there. I'm not saying anybody else isn't, but I'm saying we all know Cale Sanderson built a lot of national champions. And I think if Cale Sanderson can build four-timers and five-timers, I'm sure he can build a really good-looking set of five-timers. You know, that's to be honest with you, I think if Kyle Dake had another year, he probably would have been a five-timer. I know a lot of you disagree with that. Now, here's one that I'm going to get everybody all upset about. I think if Logan Stieber had another year, he would have been a four-timer. Now, you're going to all take that very, very the way you want to and say, well, hey, you're saying that he didn't score a takedown on Jordan Oliver. Listen, I look at it like this. Are you saying Jordan Oliver didn't score a takedown on Logan Stieber? I look at it like this. Would that have been called a takedown nowadays? Yeah. Should it have been called then? Yeah, but that's why we always tell you if it isn't called, you got to work up. But I kind of think, yeah. By today's rules, yeah, that's a takedown. So, do I want to discredit Logan Stieber? No, because that's some impeccable defense that you're staying there. You're not trying to give up much. But hey, calls were made on the mat. Logan Stieber won a national title 4 times. Now, given that if that match happened in this day and age, I would tell you guys Logan Stieber would have been a 3-time national champ. Plain simple. They would have called that takedown. And I know this episode is not all about that, but they would have called that takedown. And I'm telling you, because they would have called that takedown. This day and age where you got video replay, literally bricks can be thrown, which they are. They would have called that takedown. They would have called that takedown. It would have been the same. I related to this situation. Tony Ramos, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna find this for y'all because I really do. I really do. This is a prime example. And I want to know Tony Ramos, Logan Stieber. You all remember Tony Ramos got some turns on Logan Stieber and wound up to be no points. But let's talk about it. In this day and age, with all the swipes, Tony Ramos would have had some points. Would have had some points nowadays. They would have at least found that's what I thought, But it was really good. It was really good. I liked it. And I'm not trying to speak to whether he did or didn't. I'm just saying in this day and age, the officiating is different. That's why I'm saying they might have found some stuff different than the guys in the past. But I'm telling you, it's gonna get good. It's gonna get good if they adopt this proposal of the 5-for-5. That's what I'm hearing everybody call it, the 5-for-5 rule. Or some people say 5-4-5. They say 5-in-5. I'm just saying 5 years NCAA. 5 years of eligibility proposal. That's just. But nonetheless, we're in the end of the epi. I hope this brought you guys clarity. I hope you just understand that it's gonna get good. But I hope it is. But with that being said, this is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sebastian Romero. This is our Takedown Thursday epi. Y'all are getting on me about this one too. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. I'm saying it again. Like, comment, subscribe, share. But with that being said, that's all I got for you on this one. Weigh-In out.
The Weigh-In, where stories ignite.